Welcome to the Ultimate Sports Podcast. Today is Wednesday, December 4th, 2019. Today I'm going to recap yesterday's college basketball, NBA, and NHL games, look ahead to tonight's games. A rookie quarterback injury we have to discuss. Another free agent signing in baseball. NFL power rankings for the week. And my best bet of the day. Alrighty, we're going to start with college basketball. The ACC Big Ten Challenge highlighted the slate from yesterday and Monday, and as well as tonight. So, without further ado, here we go. Indiana State over North Dakota State, 71-60. Indiana State 4-4, North Dakota State 5-4. SC Upstate over Eastern Kentucky, 79-67. SC Upstate 2-7. Eastern Kentucky 3-5. St. John's over St. Peter's, 79-69. St. John's 7-2. St. Peter's 1-4. Number 19 Dayton over Houston Baptist, 99-68. Dayton 6-1, Houston Baptist 0-6. Number 24 Butler over Ole Miss 67-58. So my wacky line theory does not come through. Butler 8-0, Ole Miss 5-3. Good win for Butler, by the way. Stetson over Bethune-Cookman 72-67. Stetson 5-5, BCU 5-4. Northern Kentucky over Miami of Ohio 76-54. Northern Kentucky 6-3, Miami of Ohio 4-4. Coppin State over East Carolina, 85-75. Coppin State 4-6. East Carolina 2-7. George Mason over Jacksonville State, 67-60. George Mason 9-1. Jacksonville State 2-5. Charlotte loses at home to UNC Asheville, 83-75. Asheville 4-2. Charlotte 3-4. Wright State over Western Kentucky, 76-74. Wright State 7-2. Western Kentucky 6-3. Western Carolina over Chattanooga, 87-77. Western Carolina, 6-2. Chattanooga, 5-4. App State over St. Andrews, 90-58. App State is 5-4. Northwestern over BC, 82-64. This is what I got correct. Northwestern 4-3. BC 4-5. Gardner-Webb over Coke, 73-59. Weber drops to 3-5. Lafayette over St. Joe's, 94-71. Lafayette 5-2. St. Joe's 2-7. Richmond over Hampton, 80-63. Richmond 7-1. Hampton 3-5. Fairleigh Dickinson over Quinnipiac, 78-77. Fairleigh Dickinson 2-5. Quinnipiac 2-4. Ryder over Bucknell, 89-69. Ryder 5-2. Bucknell 3-7. American over UMBC, 85-61. American 3-4. UMBC 5-4. Georgia State over Dartmouth, 83-80 in overtime. Georgia State 5-3. Dartmouth 5-3. William & Mary over Old Dominion, 63-46. William & Mary 6-3. Old Dominion 3-6. Kent State over Detroit Mercy, 92-57. Kent State 7-1. Detroit Mercy 1-6. Oakland over Western Michigan, 72-62. Oakland 5-4. Western Michigan 4-5. Loyola Chicago over Ball State, 70-58. Loyola 5-4. Ball 4-4. Eastern Michigan over Valpo, 85-79. Eastern Michigan 7-1. Valpo 5-4. Iowa over Syracuse, 68-54. I was kind of right about this. I wasn't sure if Iowa was going to win outright, but they did. Iowa 6-2. Syracuse 4-4. Cincinnati over Vermont, 82-73. Cincinnati 6-2. Vermont 6-4. Number 1 Louisville over number 4 Michigan, 58-43, in a very highly anticipated game. Louisville was in control the whole time. They're 8-0. Michigan 7-1. Number 18 Baylor over Maryland Eastern, 78-46. Baylor 6-1. UMass 0-10. Belmont over Lipscomb, 80-75. Belmont 6-3. Lipscomb 3-6. Middle Tennessee over Columbia International, 86-38. Middle Tennessee's 4-5. Sanford over Auburn Montgomery, 97-64. Sanford is 5-5. McNeese over Harrodsburg, 107-61. McNeese is now 3-6 on the year. UTSA over A&M Corpus Christi, 89-67. UTSA 2-6. A&M Corpus Christi 3-5. Arkansas State over Omaha, 78-73. Arkansas State 6-2. Omaha 5-5. Louisiana over Southeast Louisiana, 98-81. Louisiana 5-3. Southeast Louisiana 2-6. Texas Rio Grande over Sam Houston State, 90-86 in double overtime. Rio Grande 3-5. Sam Houston State 4-4. Missouri State over Murray State, 71-69. Missouri State 4-5. Murray State 4-4. Drake over Milwaukee, 56-53. Drake 7-2. Milwaukee 5-4. Texas over UAB, 67-57. Texas 7-1. UAB 4-3. Arkansas over Austin Peay, 69-61. Arkansas 8-0. Austin Peay 3-4. Charleston Southern upsets Missouri 68-60. Missouri was a 27-point favorite in this game, lost outright. Charleston Southern 3-5, Missouri 4-4. Vandy over Buffalo 90-76. Vandy 6-2, Buffalo 5-3. SMU over Northwestern State 77-51. SMU 8-0, Northwestern 2-5. Creighton over Oral Roberts 72-60. Creighton 6-2, Oral 3-5. Number 15 Memphis over Bradley 71-56. Memphis 7-1, Bradley 5-3. Indiana over number 17 Florida State 80-64. Indiana 8-0, Florida State 7-2. New Mexico State over Utah 59-56. New Mexico State 5-4, Utah 5-1. Grand Canyon over St. Mary's 75-67 in overtime. Grand Canyon 4-6. Mount St. Mary's 3-6. Denver over Jackson State 67-58. Denver 4-5. Jackson State 1-8. LSU over New Orleans 90-54. LSU 6-2. New Orleans 3-5. TCU over Illinois State 81-69. TCU 6-1. Illinois State 3-5. Pitt over Rutgers 71-60. Pitt 7-2. Rutgers 6-2. Number 10 Duke handles number 11 Michigan State 87-75. You have to wonder if Michigan State was overrated before the season, especially without Joshua Langford. Duke 8-1. Michigan State 5-3. Very disappointing start to the season for Tom Izzo's team. Seattle over Incarnate Word 81-60. Seattle 5-5. Incarnate Word 2-7. Santa Barbara over Cal State Bakersfield 64-60. Santa Barbara 5-3. Bakersfield 4-6. Sacramento State over California Merced 72-36. Sacramento State is 5-1. Arizona State over San Francisco 71-67. Arizona State 5-2. San Francisco 7-2. Tonight's slate, 6:30 Fox Sports 1. Penn at number 23 Villanova. 7 o'clock SEC Network, Florida A&M against number 21 Tennessee. Colgate Binghamton, Akron Marshall, IUPUI Morehead State, Robert Morris Youngstown State, Green Bay Xavier, Iona Yukon. Maine Maritime Academy against New Hampshire. James Madison Radford, Loyola Maryland Delaware State, Western Illinois Evansville. East Tennessee State, the Citadel, Greensboro, Coastal Carolina, NC Central, Georgia, South Carolina, UMass on CBS Sports Network, VMI Duquesne, BU, George Washington, Florida Gulf Coast, FIU, Kennesaw State, UNC Greensboro, Canisius, FAU, Merrimack Brown, Towson, Morgan State, Toledo, Cleveland State, Rio Grande, Ohio, Lehigh, St. Fran, Pennsylvania, Maine Northeastern, Sacred Heart, UMass Lowell, Longwood, NC-A&T, Eastern Illinois, Purdue, Fort Wayne, 7:15 ESPN 2, number 5 Virginia against Purdue. Purdue's a 2-point favorite at home. Oh my God. This better not bite me in the ass. I'm taking Virginia to win outright. They're the reigning champions. Purdue's been up and down. They have some weird losses and some good wins. Purdue needs this game more, absolutely. But I just think this is Virginia's game to lose. BPI projects Purdue to win. I'm going to hold my nose and take the 2 with Virginia. And I think they'll win a low-scoring game. 7:15 ESPNU, Nebraska, Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech's giving 8.5. Way too many points. I'm taking Nebraska. Not only getting the 8.5, I think they win the game outright. I feel really good about this. I think Georgia Tech sucks, and Josh Pastner's a coach on the hot seat. So give me Nebraska to cover 8.5, and I think they win the game outright. I don't think that Georgia Tech should be giving this many points to any Power 5 team, including Nebraska, including Rutgers, including whoever else sucks. But Nebraska, I think, should win this game. They're better than Georgia Tech. They have the better head coach in Fred Hoiberg. And I think that Georgia Tech's a program that's in hell right now and got banned from the tournament. I just don't get it. Georgia Tech, just for being competitive against Georgia and your favorite right now, that's the worst line of the year, giving Nebraska getting the points. 7:30 ESPN, Notre Dame against number 3 Maryland. Maryland's giving 9.5. I'm taking the Terps to win and cover. They are one of the more underrated teams in the country. I just took a wager future on them to win the title. I think that this could be a dark horse to win it all. but they won't be considered that come March. But they are considered a dark horse right now because all everybody cares about is Duke and Kentucky and like all these bigger schools. But I like this Maryland team. I think they're going to go out and win by double digits. And that's as good as a big game team Notre Dame is under Mike Bray. But I just think this crowd is going to be ruckus, and I really believe that they're going to kill Notre Dame. Anthony Cowan is really going to step up and lead them to a win. Princeton, Drexel, NJIT, Army, Yale, Albany, UC Davis, Northern Arizona at 8 o'clock. Tulane, Southern Miss, Arkansas, Pine Bluff, Tulsa, UMKC, Iowa State, BYU, Utah is a nice one. BYU is favored on the road by 2.5. I like Utah to win outright at home. They're a dog here. I know people are down on Utah because they lost to Coastal Carolina and a bunch of other bad teams out in wherever that was. So I really think that it's a good opportunity back at home for them to bounce back and get a nice win. Norfolk State, Southern Illinois, Georgetown, Oklahoma State on ESPN+. This game would be on TV if not for the Big Ten ACC Challenge. Oklahoma State's giving a whopping 11. I think Georgetown is actually live here. I don't think they'll win, but I think they'll certainly cover the 11. I know Oklahoma State's 7-0. I get it, but they shouldn't be favored by that much against a team that's talented like Georgetown. Paul Quinn, Grambling, Texas State, Houston, Millsap, CL Monroe, Northern Alabama, Troy at 8:15, 8:30 Chicago State, SIU, Edwardsville, 8:30 Fox Sports 1, Texas Tech, DePaul. Texas Tech is giving 2 on the road. Texas Tech has been very disappointing this season. They have 2 losses. One of them was against Iowa, and the other was against Creighton. I thought that at this point that Chris Beard's team would be undefeated. They are favored to win this game, not only according to Vegas, but against the BPI as well. They give them a 54% chance to win. I think they'll get it done. I think DePaul's a fraud, and I won't be surprised if we're talking about DePaul being a team that's collapsed after a good start, kind of like Iowa a few years ago. They were a ranked team, top 10 team, but DePaul's not ranked, obviously, because people kind of know the truth about DePaul, and it hurts some people out there, particular in like that Midwest area, that they suck. And they're 8-0 because of their soft schedule. And teams that we kind of overrated before the year, like Iowa. But then Iowa beat Texas Tech, so who knows, maybe Iowa's good. But you could argue DePaul's good, but I just don't think DePaul is as that good. And I think eventually that the conference play will, the talent on the other teams like Villanova and Xavier, Butler's even really good, Marquette, all those teams will beat them out, and DePaul will be a team that is battling with St. John's to avoid the cellar when it's all said and done. So give me Texas Tech -2. I think they win by double digits. 9 o'clock, Texas Southern against number 9 Gonzaga. Jacksonville, Marquette on FS2. Northern New Mexico and Northern Colorado. Air Force, Wyoming. So Mountain West play begins today. Air Force is a 2-point favorite on the road. I like Wyoming getting the points at home. I think they win the game outright. I just think they're better than Air Force. So give me Wyoming getting the 2 points at home. I think the wrong team's favored in that game, too. Boise State, New Mexico at 9 o'clock. New Mexico's favored by 3.5 at home. I think they cover that easily. Boise State's a good team, don't get me wrong, but New Mexico is off to a strong start this season and have played competitive against some good teams and have some nice wins on their resume, and I think that they're going to surprise some people in Mountain West play this year. So give me New Mexico minus a 3.5. Weber State and Utah Valley. That's an interesting game, even though Weber has 1 win and Utah Valley is 1 game sub 500. A nice one in Mountain West play, San Diego State, who's unbeaten, at Colorado State, who's 6-3. San Diego State's favored by 5. I think they win and cover. They're a better team than Colorado State. Colorado State's got off to a nice start this season. But I just think San Diego State's the better team. I think I had San Diego State finishing 2nd in the Mountain West this season, and I had them in the NIT. So I might be wrong about the NIT. They might actually make the big dance because there's a lot of teams that are in the Power 5 that have underachieved to the point where they're probably not going to make the tournament, like Syracuse and Wisconsin. And teams like that, and that opens up spots for the other conferences to have multi-bids like the A10 and the WCC and the MWC. And if they're fortunate enough, again, the SoCon or the OVC or somebody like that. So, give me San Diego State minus a 5 to open conference play. ESPN2 at 9:15, Wisconsin, NC State. NC State's a 5.5 point favorite. I think they win and cover. Wisconsin's been a mega underachiever this year, and I think there's a chance they fired their head coach after the season, Greg Gard. ESPNU, Wake, and Penn State. Penn State's a whopping 11.5 point favorite at home. Penn State only has one loss this year, and that's to Ole Miss. And Ole Miss lost to Butler yesterday, and Butler's a darn good team. Wake Forest has had a couple surprise wins, notably over Davidson. And I believe they beat Charleston as well, and Charleston's not terrible either. I do think Wake can cover the point spread, but I just think that Penn State is the best player on the floor in this game with Lamar Stevens, and I think they'll get it done. So give me Penn State minus the 11.5. 9:30 ESPN, number 6 Ohio State against number 7 North Carolina. UNC's giving 3.5. That's a steal. Give me Carolina. I think everybody's overreacting to that Michigan game and how that ended. I think Carolina should personally be favored by, at most, 5. Maybe even 5.5, 6. But this is low. Carolina is the best player on the court in Cole Anthony. You could argue Chris Holtman may have a coaching edge over Roy Williams at this stage of their careers, but Roy Williams is not a bad coach. And neither's Coach K, and neither's Izzo. Although Izzo's off the bad start this year. Coach K lost to Stephen F. Austin, and Roy's had a couple bad losses over the last couple years. But give me Carolina minus 3.5. I think this is a breakout spot for Cole Anthony as he'll re-enter the conversation for best prospect in the 2020 NBA draft. I know Anthony Edwards made a statement last week, really handing it to Michigan State. I believe that was Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. He made his statement. They didn't win the game, but he put up the 37 mark. I think Cole Anthony needs to come out, have a good game on ESPN, and show everybody that I don't want to be known as Greg Anthony's son. I want to be known as a guy that could be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. So give me North Carolina minus 3.5, and I'm going to make that my best play of the night in college basketball. William Marymount at number 20, Colorado at 10 o'clock, as well as Eastern Washington at number 22, Washington. Washington State at Idaho. That's a weird road game for Wazoo. UNLV, Fresno State in conference play. Fresno's giving 4.5. I think that's a big line. I'm taking UNLV getting the points. UNLV has a good coach. I think that they're live here. So give me UNLV plus the 4.5. I think that's a big number for Fresno. And I don't think Fresno's bad either. But I just think that this line should be 3, maybe 2.5 or 2. Cal State Northridge, Portland. Cal State Fullerton Pacific. Santa Clara, Nevada. UC Riverside, Cal Baptist. And Cal San Francisco. Last one, 11:15, ESPN2. Number 25, Utah State and San Jose State. Utah State has the one loss. That was not a bad loss. They lost at St. Mary's. And St. Mary's is a team that's going to be bidding for an at-large this year. I know that Winthrop loss for them sucks. And I think that can come back to bite them at season's end. But beating Utah State kind of made up for it a little bit if you're St. Mary's. But Utah State's a good team in their own right. They have a win over LSU, so they've proven that they're for real. They're giving a whopping 22.5 on the road at San Jose State. San Jose State's just really bad. So give me Utah State minus the 22.5 to cover the point spread. Now we'll talk NBA. I believe there were 7 games on last night. There's no ESPN games on tonight because obviously the ACC Big Ten Classic is on the network tonight. Pistons over Cavs, 127-94. Detroit, 8-13. Cleveland, 5-15. Blake Griffin, 24. Colin Sexton at 22. Magic over the Wiz, 127-120. Orlando 9-11. Washington 6-13. Evan Fournier at 31. Bradley Beal at 42. Heat over the Raptors 121-110 in overtime. My NBA best bet went to shit as the Heat go to 15-5. I probably underrated the Miami Heat going into the team. I didn't realize that they now have the same record as the Toronto Raptors at 15-5. Jimmy Butler had a triple-double in this game. He had 22 points and 13 boards and 12 assists. So that signing's really looking out to be a great signing for the Miami Heat so far, leading them to double digits over 500 in an Eastern Conference that is better than any people could have imagined. Everyone thought it was Philly, Milwaukee, and everybody else, but it's Milwaukee, Philly, although Philly has had some weird losses this year and trailed by 17 against the Knicks a few weeks ago. But that conference also has Toronto, who is trying after winning the championship last year, despite no Kawhi Leonard. Miami as well. Indiana could be a wild card factor once Oladipo comes back, and same with Brooklyn for their backcourt duo of Karis LeVert and Kyrie Irving. And obviously they're going to be a finals contender next year. It's Kevin Durant's back. And then another team in the East that really has opened some eyes this year has certainly been the Boston Celtics, who's 14-5. Kemba Walker's been great. So the East is a lot better than given credit for this season. There's a lot of good teams, and then, a lot for the Eastern Conference, and then there's a couple teams that have underachieved, whether that's because of injury or whatnot, and then those horrible teams like the Knicks and the Bulls and the Wizards and the Hawks, who I'm very surprised that the Hawks are as bad as they are. They're like Knicks bad. Mavs over the Pelicans 118-97. This game was on TNT. The Mavs are 14-6. New Orleans 6-15. Luka Doncic had 33 points, 18 boards. And then Brandon Ingram had 24. Spurs over the Rockets 135 in overtime. The Spurs should not have won this game. They were gifted this win by the officials because of a call that they should have or shouldn't have made. And obviously the Rockets reached out to the league, and the league scoffed at the idea that the Rockets would be awarded a victory over the Spurs after the missed call on James Harden's dunk. And that's really is what is getting the attention. Yes, it was a bad call, and the Rockets shouldn't have lost this game and had no business losing this game. But the reality is that they blew a 20-something point lead, and we're looking ahead a little bit. And that was just a really bad loss for Mike D'Antoni's team. Granted, a bad call in reality is what cost them the game. Houston 13-7, San Antonio 8-14. And Harden had a 50-point game again, and Lonnie Walker stepped up for San Antonio at 28. Lakers over the Nuggets 105-96. Lakers 18-3. Lakers might be the best team in the league right now. Denver 13-5. That's a really good win for the Lakers. Good bounce back win after losing to Dallas the other day. Anthony Davis had 25. Jamal Murray had 22. Clippers over the Blazers 117-97. I was right about this too. I said the Clippers would win and cover. Clippers 16-6. Portland 8-13. Montrezl Harrell led them in scoring with 26. CJ McCollum had 20. Tonight's slate: 7 o'clock, Warriors, Hornets, Bucks, Pistons, Suns, Magic, 7:30, Heat, Celtics, Nets, Hawks, 8 o'clock, Pacers, Thunder, Grizzlies, Bulls, 8:30, Timberwolves, Mavericks, NBA TV, Lakers, Jazz at 9 o'clock, and 10 o'clock, the Kings at the Trailblazers. In terms of a best bet on the board for the NBA tonight, I am going to go with the betting against Miami, I know will bite me in the ass again. But I have to do it. Second of a back-to-back. Celtics are well rested. Kemba Walker's back. And I think that crowd hates the Heat, even though LeBron's gone. But Jimmy Butler's there now. And Celtics fans, I don't think, like Jimmy Butler because he passed on them. So give me the Celtics minus the 6. I think it's a letdown spot for Miami. And I think that Boston can win this game by double digits. So give me the Celtics minus the 6 tonight at home against the Miami Heat. They've been pretty reliable for me so far this year. NHL. Some interesting results from last night, and we'll look ahead to the slate tonight, which is only 4 games. Bruins over the Hurricanes 2-0. Bruins still without a regulation loss at home. They're 23-5, by far the best team in the league. Carolina 16-11-1, number 1 started the game with 24 saves on 24 shots. Yaroslav Halak, number 2 started the game with the goal. Charlie Coyle, number 3 started the game with the goal. David Krejci. Canadians over the Islanders 4-2. Vegas just knew. Canadians end their losing streak. Much needed win. 12-10-6. Islanders 18-6-2. Number 1 started the game with the goal and assist. Shea Weber, number 2 started the game with the goal and assist. Brandon Gallagher, number 3 started the game with the goal and assist. Philip Deneau. Wild over the Panthers 4-2. Minnesota 13-11-4. Florida 13-9-5. Number 1 star of the game with 44 saves on 46 shots. Capo Kakkonen. Number 2 started the game with the goal and assist. Jason Zucker, number 3 started the game with the goal and assist. Jonathan Huberdeau. Golden Knights over the Devils 4-3. Devils have a new coach. We will get into that when we talk about some news later on in the podcast. Vegas 15-11-4. New Jersey 9-14-4. Number 1 started the game with a hat trick. Jonathan Marchessault, number 2 started the game with 3 assists. Alex Tuch, number 3 started the game with the goal and assist. Kyle Palmieri. Flyers over the Maple Leafs 6-1. The Flyers, I believe, scored 5 straight goals after it being 1-1 in the third. So the final score is kind of deceiving. Philadelphia 16-7-5. Toronto 13-12-4. This was my best player yesterday in hockey. It came through. Number 1 started the game with 27 saves on 28 shots. Carter Hart, number 2 started the game with the goal and assist. Travis Konecny, number 3 started the game with the goal. Claude Giroux. Coyotes over the Blue Jackets 4-2. Arizona 16-9-4. Columbus 11-12-4. So Blue Jackets starting to regress a little bit. Number 1 started the game with 33 saves on 35 shots. Darcy Kemper, number 2 started the game with a goal. Christian Fischer, number 3 started the game with a goal. Dean Kukin. Lightning over the Predators 3-2 in overtime. The Lightning 13-9-3. Nashville 12-10-5. Number 1 started the game with a goal and assist. Nikita Kucherov, number 2 started the game with a goal and assist. Kyle Turris, number 3 started the game with 28 saves on 31 shots. Pekka Rinne. Jets over the Stars 5-1. Winnipeg 17-10-1. They've turned it around. Dallas 15-11-3. Number 1 started the game with the goal and assist. Mark Sheffley, number 2 started the game with the goal and assist. Nick Lagellers, number 3 started the game with the goal and 2 assists. Kyle Connor. Canucks over the Senators 5-2. Vancouver 14-11-4. Ottawa 11-16-1. Number 1 started the game with 2 assists. Adam Gaudette. Number 2 started the game with the goal. Zach McEwen. And the number 3 started the game with the goal. Antoine Russell. Capitals over the Sharks 5-2. Washington 24-5. San Jose 15-13-1. Number 1 started the game with a goal and 2 assists. Jonathan Carlson, number 2, started the game with 2 goals. Jacob Vrana, number 3, started the game with 2 goals. Garnett Hathaway. Tonight's slate only 4 games. 7 o'clock Avs Maple Leafs. 8 o'clock NBCSN Blues Penguins. Doc Emrick, Eddie Olczyk, Brian Boucher on the call. Should be an interesting game. The Blues have been playing a lot better than the Penguins. It's amazing that the Blues have been able to do without Vladimir Tarasenko. They're probably going to make a trade to give themselves some firepower in their quest to repeat. Pittsburgh has been interesting, a little up and down. I think Pittsburgh's going to get it done tonight at home. I think it's an overtime game. So give me the Penguins here at home tonight. And Vegas is trying to suggest that the Penguins are going to win because they're minus 115. Sens Oilers at 9:30 and 10 o'clock. Capitals at the Kings. Now we're going to talk about some news items while we're on the subject of hockey. The New Jersey Devils have fired John Hynes. I think this was a move that was overdue. They should have fired him at the end of last season after failing to make the playoffs, but they didn't. and they went out and spent big in free agency. They won the lottery, got Jack Hughes. He's not performed so far this season for the Devils, really. Traded for PK Subban, so that was another big name acquisition, and there was a lot of people who thought the Devils were going to finish in the top 3 in the Metropolitan Division. Taylor Hall's still on the team now. He's on the trade block, and that their season's going into hell. They should trade Taylor Hall. They'll get a first-round pick back in all likelihood. He's a good player. I think that's a guy that the Blues should look out for, actually. That's a good fit for the St. Louis Blues. I just came up with that fit. Another team I think could use him would be the New York Islanders, who need another scorer to go with their young core with Anders Lee and Matthew Barzal. I think that Hall would be good there. And obviously Lou Lamoriello traded for Hall when he was with the Devils. So why not do it when he's with the Islanders? I believe Lou was still at the Devils when he pulled off that trade. Or was that Ray Shero that traded for Hall? You know what? I think it was Ray Shero. That was my mistake. It was Shero that traded for Taylor Hall, not Lou Lamoriello. But it'd be fitting if it was Lou Lamoriello that traded for Taylor Hall from his old team. So I just think that would be interesting. But I don't know if the Devils would trade with the Islanders or the Rangers or Philly or anyone in their division. I think that the likely teams are like the Blues. I think the Predators can be in play for him. They could use somebody like him. Vegas is loaded. I just don't see them improving their offense. Well, meanwhile, they have Mark Stone and Max Pacioretty and Jonathan Marchessault and a bunch of these guys that are awesome. So I don't think they'll go that route. They also have Paul Stastny on that team. Would the Avalanche do it? That would be interesting. But they already have that top line, and that's a team that got better. Another team that I find kind of interesting for Taylor Hall would be the Winnipeg Jets. That's a team that is deep offensively, but if they added him, they would just make him deeper. Chicago, if they're in the mix, I could see them adding somebody like Taylor Hall, but I don't think they want to give up all that draft capital because they've been bad for a few years now. And they didn't luck out like the Rangers did with jumping to number 2 in the lottery. So I don't see them doing it. I don't think Montreal is going to do it because they're in the East, and I think Shero prefers to deal them out West. So we got kind of off subject here. We talked about Taylor Hall a little bit regarding this Devils thing. But yeah, John Hynes should have been fired already, but better late than never. And replacing Hynes for now is Elaine Nasverdine, who was a pro scout of the organization, and Peter Horachek has been added to the coaching staff as well. And I think that Hynes would have been fired in October had they lost that nationally televised game against the Rangers, in which they beat the Rangers 5-2. But yeah, after an embarrassing loss to Buffalo, that was the time to do it. They looked better last night, but they still lost courtesy of that hat trick by Marchessault. They had the lead in that game, I believe. But we'll see if the Devils perform better or worse under this new intern head coach. And I'm going to have Doug Saravo on the podcast tomorrow, and we'll talk a lot about this. Jeff Maglicetti and I will discuss this tonight when I have him on. And that's all for the Hynes conversation for now. We'll save this more for Doug and for Jeff Maggs. And Jeff Burns on Friday, too. We have to talk about that with him as well. Another firing that happened yesterday was Ron Rivera of the Carolina Panthers. He was fired after an underachieving year this year. Surprising to me a little bit. They're currently third in the NFC South. They are, I believe, 5-7 on the season. It's debatable whether he deserved the axe or not. The people that are going to say yes is time had run its course, underachieving team, and he just hasn't done anything in a few years in terms of success. The case against firing him is he's gotten a lot out of his teams when expectations have been low. The best example of this is 2013, the third year of Cam Newton's career, the year he had his breakout year and led the Panthers to the number 2 seed in the NFC that year, won the NFC South. And I know the naysayers would say, oh, took advantage of underachieving Saints, underachieving Falcons, dysfunctional Bucs. And then the NFC South was weak in Cam's 4th year. They won that. And that was the year New Orleans and Atlanta both underachieved, and Tampa was bad too. 2015, they were 15-1. Cam Newton won the MVP. They made the Super Bowl, lost to the Broncos. And then before Rivera made the playoffs, he was on the hot seat going into the 2013 season. Everybody had him as the first coach fired. And then it went the other way, and they went, I believe, 12-4 and got the 2 seed. His first 2 years were nothing special. Obviously, were Cam Newton's first 2 years in the league. Cam had shown promise those first 2 years, and that obviously helped him keep his job. And then he was great in 13, and he won the Coach of the Year that year. He won the Coach of the Year in 2015 as well after going 15-1. 2016, they regressed. I believe they were a sub-500 team that year. 2017, they made the playoffs as a wild card team. It was Christian McCaffrey's rookie year, and although McCaffrey wasn't all that special that year, Cam Newton was still really good, or still playing at a high level. And the reason why his play had declined was because of health, not really just decline in play. And it wasn't really age. It was more health issue related. So I'm fascinated to see who Carolina replaces Rivera with. Obviously, Perry Field is taking over as the intern coach. He was a secondaries coach, although Field was an intern head coach with the Bills a while ago. He was the defensive coordinator for the Giants when they won the Super Bowl back in the 2011 season. In terms of possible replacements, Jason Garrett maybe. That's a team that could be interested in him. And now there's people saying that Ron Rivera should replace Jason Garrett, or Pat Shurmur with the Giants, which I think are 2 realistic possibilities, especially the Giants if Dave Gettleman keeps his job. I think Ron Rivera is your next head coach of the New York Football Giants if Dave Gettleman's still there. But I think Dave Gettleman's getting fired. We'll save that conversation for Jeff Maglicetti regarding the Giants. But now we're on the Panthers and who could replace Ron Rivera. Wouldn't rule out Pat Shurmur. I saw his name thrown out there. That would not be the best hire for them. Just saying. Some people saying Dan Quinn if he gets fired from the Atlanta Falcons. I wouldn't go that route either. He has done nothing since the Super Bowl collapse. And I think that Brady in that second half exposed them, and they never recovered from that. Quite frankly, as much injuries and whatnot they have had, and the loss of Kyle Shanahan as the offensive coordinator after that Super Bowl run, they really, really haven't recovered from that, and I think Quinn will pay the price there. So I don't think Dan Quinn's an option for the Panthers. Jim Harbaugh's name I saw thrown out there, I don't see that. The hot coordinator right now is Greg Rowan, who's the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. He's done a really nice job this year. And another hot coach that is going to be in play in terms of a coordinator is the defensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers, Robert Saleh. And then another coordinator to keep an eye on is Wink Martindale, Don Wink Martindale of the Ravens. Is another one to keep an eye on as well, because we talked about Rowan, so we have to talk about the other side with Martindale. So it should be interesting to see where Carolina goes from here in terms of its future head coach. Now we'll talk about a injury in the NFL. Daniel Jones has a high ankle sprain, so they'll miss Monday night's start against the Philadelphia Eagles. And Eli Manning, will start the game on Monday Night Football. And there's a lot of ridiculous and crazy but hot takes out there regarding this. You can make a case that this is a bad setback for the New York Football Giants, who lose their future quarterback and their quarterback of now, and hurts his development due to an ankle injury. And there's people saying that they hope that it's a 1-week thing and he can go back out there and finish the season to finish up his rookie year development. And then there's other people that are saying, which I think might be the right case, rest him up before this injury gets worse. And maybe they learned their lesson with Saquon Barkley and his injury and how he was never the same after that injury. And that's really set the Giants back as well. If Saquon Barkley was healthy, I don't think they'd have the worst record in the NFC. They probably would be 4-8 if Saquon Barkley didn't get hurt. That's my opinion. They're still bad. They still probably would fire their head coach. But if Saquon Barkley never gotten hurt, I think they'd be either 3-9 or 4-8. I just think Saquon is that good of a player. And then this injury is sort of similar to Saquon's because it was an ankle thing. And Saquon missed, I believe, 3 games, but I think he forced his way back to be playing, and the Giants obviously rushed him back. And I think the Giants are going to be careful with this one with Daniel Jones and let Eli Manning have a little farewell tour to close out his interesting NFL career. And I use the word interesting because heavily criticized for doing nothing outside of 2 Super Bowl runs. Really has had some bad moments over the last 5 years. You could argue that the Giants should have moved on from Eli Manning a few years ago, and even after 2013 even, but Odell Beckham Jr. really revitalized his career a little bit. So you can make that argument. There's a lot of arguments made about Eli Manning. We'll talk about that with Jeff Maglichetti as well. But ultimately, this could end up working out for the Giants and they lose out and they have the opportunity to draft Chase Young. They fired Pat Shurmur and Dave Gettleman, which has to happen because neither of those guys know what they're doing. And they set the Giants back, especially Gettleman. And I get it. Jerry Reese didn't do him any favors because he really is the one that created the mess and really handed it to Gettleman, who made it worse. So I'm interested to see what they do this offseason, and hopefully Daniel Jones gets well soon and he has a good 2020 to give some Giants fans some hope. A free agent signing in baseball that happened today. Cole Hamels signed with the Atlanta Braves, 1 year, $18 million. That's a pretty nice contract, 1 year contract for a guy that is on the decline of his career. I thought that Cole Hamels should have stayed in the National League, which he did. I correctly predicted the Atlanta Braves for him. I didn't think it was going to be a 1 year deal. I thought it'd be like a 2 year, $34 million type of deal, but it's 1 year, $18 million. I think he'll help that team. I think that he's somebody that is familiar with the NL East because he was a Phillies pitcher a long time, although the NL East has changed a lot since he left Philadelphia. Obviously, he pitched in the Central the last year and a half with the Cubs. Got to know that division very well. But yeah, very good signing by the Braves, who have really done a nice job this offseason, remaking their team a little bit after that humiliating Game 5 loss against the Cardinals in the NLDS this past season. Now we'll do power rankings for week number 14 in the NFL season. I'm going to be pretty quick here, hopefully. So without further ado, here we go. 32 is the New York Giants. They moved down to the last spot because of the Jones injury and because they haven't won a game since September 29th. 31 is the Cincinnati Bengals. They finally get their first win over the Jets. 30 is the Miami Dolphins. They get their third win of the season over a overrated Philly team. 29 is the Cardinals. They've regressed after showing a lot of promise of late. So you could argue they're as bad as the Giants right now. But I overrating them a little bit because of Kyler Murray. Number 28, the Atlanta Falcons have had some nice performances over the past month, but reality set back into them, in my opinion. 27 is the Redskins. They've won a couple games here to mess up their draft positioning. 26 is the New York Jets. Bad loss against the Bengals on Sunday. 25 is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Doug Marrone and Tom Coughlin seem like they're out the door this offseason, and Nick Foles turned out to be a bust, and Gardner Minshew's now the starting quarterback. Number 24 is the Detroit Lions. David Blau's now their quarterback, and that team is just not very good, and their defense absolutely sucks. 23 is the Chargers, the most disappointing team in the league, not named the Cleveland Browns, in my opinion. 22 is the Denver Broncos. They really have been Jekyll and Hyde of late. Just had a win over the Chargers. 21 is the Panthers. They fired their coach. We just talked about them. 20 is the Bucks. They've been playing a little better lately. They might finish with a better record than people expected them to before the year. And the interesting question is what do they do with Jameis? 19 is the Raiders. They've really have fallen off of late, and they are starting to look like a fraud. 18 is the Cleveland Browns. Yes, I have the Browns out of the Raiders. It's because the Raiders have been trashed the last 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the Browns really have not. And if it weren't for a Grant Gilbert series, maybe the Steeler game is a little bit different. I'm not saying that they would have won, but they had a 10-0 lead. Freddie Kitchens is the debacle. 17 is the Eagles. They're the most disappointing team in the NFC in my mind this season. I had them making the playoffs this year, and Carson Wentz really hasn't been all that special. 16 is the Bears. You could argue this is the most disappointing team in the NFC. This would actually be my selection for it, not Philly. Mitch Trubisky's regressed big time, although he had a nice game-winning drive against the Lions. And if they win against the Cowboys this week, maybe they can make things interesting. 15's the Colts. They've regressed lately, and that's because more of injury rather than poor play. 14's the Rams. They looked good last week, but I think that's more about their opponent than them. 13's the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is unbelievable that the run that they've been on lately. Dalvin Hodges is now their quarterback. 12's the Cowboys. Pressure is on this team more than anybody in the NFL right now. Jason Garrett is on his way out, I think, regardless of how far this team goes, because I don't see them making the Super Bowl. 11's the Titans. This has just been an incredible run by this team. Maybe they make the playoffs, could steal that division potentially. 10's the Buffalo Bills. Speaking of stealing divisions, I wouldn't be dumbfounded if that happened at this point. They've been playing very well lately. They upset the Cowboys on Thanksgiving. I think they have a real chance to beat the Ravens on Sunday. 9's the Chiefs. Been playing better since everybody's been getting healthy. 8's the Patriots. Yes, I have the Patriots this low. They just really haven't been the same offensively this season, especially the past few weeks. 7's the Houston Texans. They had the signature win over the Patriots on Sunday Night Football. I think this team is a threat to win the Super Bowl. 6, the Minnesota Vikings. A game that I think was winnable for them. It's always hard to win in Seattle. Just Russell Wilson's that good. 5's the Green Bay Packers. I think they're going to win their division. Good bounce back, get right win at the Giants last week. 4, the San Francisco 49ers. They really couldn't have played any better in defeat as they did against the Ravens. 3's the Saints. I think this is the team to beat in the NFC right now. But I have the Seahawks ahead of them only because Russell Wilson's just playing out of his mind right now, and they have a legit chance to have home field advantage in the NFC playoffs. And number 1's the Ravens. Lamar Jackson, the defense, the running game, everything is clicking for the Ravens right now. Even though you could argue that they could have lost that Niners game last week. Best bet of the day brought to you by DraftKings. We're going to start in college basketball, and that might be the only place we'll do. Villanova, Northeastern, Xavier, FIU, Toledo, UConn, East Tennessee State, Loyola Maryland, Duquesne, Evansville, Colgate, and not going to go with Oklahoma State. Let's go with Iowa State. 122 odds, wagering $5, payout of $11.10. That's it for the podcast today. I'll be back tonight with Jeff Maglicetti talking about the Giants situation, Jets, college football, the rest of the NFL, a little college basketball as well. And then tomorrow I have a couple guests coming on, and obviously going to recap everything from last night, look ahead to tomorrow, and any other free agent signings that happen in baseball or any other news that happens in the world of sports. Hope you guys have a great day, everyone.